We're working. All right. Water Quality Management Committee meeting Thursday, November 21st, 7:30 p.m. will come to order. First item on the agenda is report and discussion on town meeting, which we just sort of began. We had our 4 articles. We were heard at 11 o'clock.
After
11 o'clock, which could have been a fiasco and turned out not to be. The meeting was happy to hear what we had to say and happy not to argue about it for too long. So everything passed.
Mm-hmm.
We'll see how they like it when we come back for $50 million in 6 months.
Yes.
Right. I think we should say that the article with the special legislation now moves
Right.
to the state level. And these were all tools that were to help spread the costs for the homeowners. So we certainly hope that we will be successful in getting this special legislation passed.
Any other comments or discussion of the town meeting articles? Okay, number 2, proposed funding request to the Barnstable County Wastewater Collaborative. The collaborative is something that was set up 5 years ago by the county, and they have appropriated in the course of those 5 years about $1.4 million to the collaborative to move wastewater issues forward all across the Cape. We, like other towns, would like some of that to go our way. And we've thought of a few things that we should ask for, and additional suggestions would be welcome. But do you have the list of what we came up with?
One thought would be to have the collaborative help with the monitoring costs for the second year of the shellfish demonstration. That cost is $50,000, and that's an annual cost. That's how much it's costing us to do the monitoring. So the monitoring for that. And the other piece is to help with the second year of the shellfish demonstration, maybe by purchasing some additional seed. And after today's budgeting, look maybe to help with some additional funding for labor. Would be part of it. So for the shellfish demonstration. The other was for an additional few borings in the South Coast peninsulas to help us characterize the thickness of the aquifer and how, just how deep these PRBs need to go. We have information for seacoast shores. It's been studied fairly extensively, but not for the other peninsulas, so we would some money for that. In addition, an idea to use irrigation wells to capture the plume of a septic system. This is an idea that's come out of, come locally, and it would be a pilot project, but the idea is a septic plume has nitrogen. If you could capture it and use that water for irrigating turf, lawn irrigation and watering, that may reduce the amount of nitrogen that a septic system is producing. So some money for that is another thought. And finally, to do a larger scale treatment wetland or engineered constructed wetland demonstration project at a larger scale. Those are some ideas that have been floating around.
Steve?
There was an idea brought up at the Oyster Pond Working Group. I think it was for this, to use this money for it, which was the rain monitoring or air monitoring, since that affects all the estuaries and
You're
the whole
right.
Cape.
You're right. That was one that we.
So it has an obvious appeal regionally.
Atmospheric.
And I
Yes.
also point out that since money's fungible, what we want to look for is things that appeal to the source of the money. Because what we save in place A, we then have the ability to spend in space B.
Absolutely.
So we don't really care which money pays for which.
Right. Virginia.
Yeah, I was just going to say atmospheric deposition is the term, and we did, I think we did originally mention it, but obviously what is needed is Cape-wide. which is a somewhat different approach, but would be probably more in sync with what the collaborative might be interested in, because it would benefit all towns, and it would give us a more accurate picture, because there appears to be a trend down.
Yeah, that's a very good one. And the other ideas that anyone has, I think the funding range is sort of 50,000 and under. They're not looking for $1 million projects, but they're looking for smaller ones and looking for ones that have applicability to more than one town if possible.
Well, all of our demonstration projects are in principle applicable to other
Yeah.
towns.
True.
Yes.
So it's just a question of salesmanship. I mean, do you give them everything in the kitchen sink? And does that increase the probability that they give us more? Or does it make us look ridiculous?
I don't know.
No. How many will they be willing to fund for a single town? Only one or two? Or?
We don't know. They have no standards.
Have they done any yet? Or have they given any other 1.4 million out yet?
Well, they gave us, remember at the very beginning, we had a consultant come in and help with the RFPs?
Oh, that was from that money.
Yeah.
They paid for that.
Oh, I thought that was the Cape Cod Commission was doing that.
Cape Cod Collaborative.
okay.
They're allies, but they're not.
All right. Okay. Gotcha.
And the other thing they offered to do for us was they hired the guy in Boston who was going to go show the bureaucrats how Bourne's Pond opening should have less bureaucratic attention than it currently has. They paid for that. That was not a success story.
Right.
But they did pay for that. So I think those are the two that we could say came here so far.
So are you looking for a formal motion to submit these to the collaborative? How's it going to actually happen?
I don't know if we need a motion, but certainly the idea is
Well, a sense of the committee.
sense of the committee, yeah. Any other thoughts that would be
Have
appropriate?
they given us any indication of how much detail we have to have in a proposal to make it acceptable, or are they just...
No. The way, since they have no
Standards.
standards, I think the way it's going to work is we come up with our wish list and then we sit down with them and say, here it is, and flesh it out in person.
Is there a deadline of submission?
Not really. It's for fiscal 2014, so the budget year has begun, but there's time for.
And they're likely to do this for several years into the future?
Yeah. Well, as long as the county keeps giving them money for this, yeah. They get $300,000 or $400,000 a year.
And we're sort of head and shoulders above most of the other towns in technical abilities. So
Yeah.
Yeah. No, there's
could
lots
put
of
in enough
reasons.
proposals to take the whole.
We have a third of the estuaries.
Right. But I think it's the basic point that we're working on a lot of alternatives that have greater application, and so the more they're able to help us advance that down the road, the better. Because Article 17 won't fund everything.
Yeah. So as you think of stuff, email it along and
Okay.
we'll flesh it out and put it on the list.
When do you want them in by?
No particular deadline. It's
Next week.
yeah, next week.
Okay, yeah,
If
give
you
me...
want it, yeah. I think it's time to.
Okay, anytime before next Thursday.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Yeah, that's fair.
We're not meeting next Thursday, that's for sure.
No, we're not. No, thank you for pointing that out.
Well, I think we should at least send an initial list so it gets on their radar screen, because we're nearly halfway through the fiscal year.
Do we have to spend it by the end of the fiscal year,
I
or?
don't think so.
Okay.
It seems to. There's no.
Okay.
Yeah.
They don't have any deadlines like that. Okay, so we'll use our heads in a week and come up with something
Good.
in addition to what's already been put on the table. Next item, planning for the MIPA hearing on December 4th. This is the joint hearing with MIPA and the Commission at the library, at the Herman Room at 5:30 on the 4th of December.
Which is a Wednesday.
It's a Wednesday,
Yes.
right?
Can you give me an idea of how long that is expected to last?
My guess is 2 hours, might go 2.5. Certainly,
Yeah.
worst case would be over by 9, but more likely by 8.
I'm trying to, I have something I promised to do And it's a question of whether I ask that I be on the agenda for that at 7 or 7:30 or what time.
Well, I think you should make it 8 or after.
Yeah, I don't know if it's that, I can't.
Yeah.
They go from 7 to 8.
Oh,
Okay.
wow.
Well, be there when you can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There's 7 of us, so we
Yeah,
can.
okay.
And most of it is going to be an initial presentation by us and then comments from the public, which we have urged them to make longer than 3 minutes, based on the experience some of the public had last time
Yes.
they came around. And we hope they'll do that. But that's their format. We're not in charge of it, so.
Now, normally our regular meeting would be the next day, the 5th.
Yeah. Mhm.
I
Yeah.
think
Yeah.
I'd suggest that we schedule a meeting for that Wednesday in the other room in the library, so that we could duck out either before or after their hearing. Oh, if we, take up whatever we need to take up, but not meet again the entire next night.
That's a good one.
And that, I have a very difficult day. I have to be in Boston at 2 o'clock and back from Boston by 5:30,
Wow,
which shouldn't be a problem,
right,
because the appointment usually lasts an hour.
okay.
But I would rather not try to get back before that meeting to a
Okay,
meeting.
then don't, okay, well, we can schedule whatever we're gonna do
Right.
for after
Yeah,
the meet the hearing. And if
Okay.
they start at- when they say at 5:30, they should not still be going at 8, but we could make it 8.
Right.
It is
They-
5:30, not 5.
It's 5:30.
Yeah,
So do you want us to schedule our meeting
for 8
for 8?
that night? Yeah, that sounds right.
Just meet in the library.
It is separate room,
Separate room.
Trustees room?
yeah, so they go,
The day room?
let's say
What's it called?
7:30. If it turns out to be 8, it can be 8, but at least
Yeah.
people will,
Posted for
it'll be posted for 7:30.
okay.
And then I have to call the library for the room.
Right,
Okay.
well, that would be good. The presentation, I expect, will be very similar to the one we've been doing with the selectmen, with the slides, the PowerPoint. But certainly, we're starting in some ways with square one with a group that doesn't know much about what we've been doing, so we have to kind of start fresh, but I think that would be the basic presentation. And then they kind of guide it after that as far as what they want to hear more about, or what the public wants to hear about, or whatever.
Mhm.
Any other comments or questions on that?
Just one thing on that, maybe we should prepare, like we have different slide shows for different things, and you have your basic one you give, and then if people have questions, specific questions, we can have backup slides to pop up to show data, whatever it is we have to answer with, so we could have somewhere the back, you have your basic show,
Right.
and then
That's good.
if something, then you don't have to go into all the detail, and let the questions go through that.
Okay, that makes sense.
We certainly will have the West Falmouth presentation
Right.
as a backup,
Right.
because that was a really fairly deep
Right,
analytical
right.
presentation.
And we have a shellfish presentation.
Yeah, I was going to say, there should be a
You
few
have to
slides on
update
the
it, you have to
shellfish.
update it a little bit, yeah.
And Echo Toilets, because they don't know what we've done, how far we've gotten.
Should we continue with the discussion on the schedule or not, or should we, since that's,
Which one?
We kind of jumped to the,
we jumped to that.
Oh, we did, so, okay, never mind. Okay, okay, the second part of item 7, since we have skipped over a couple here, was rescheduling the December 19th meeting. Our experience with a week before Christmas is that everybody's too frazzled to pay attention to anything in the public realm. So I'd be willing to skip it. We'll have plenty to do in January, but unless something comes up that has to happen. What, do we know when the filing deadline is for warrant articles?
We don't, but it's probably something like January 7th, 14th, somewhere
Alright.
in there. So we would have our first meeting in January
The day before that or something.
the day before that, which might be a little bit,
Yeah, have we got a calendar? Is it-
January 2nd, is the first day.
is the
January.
first
Okay.
day.
But that's,
January 2nd is the first Thursday?
yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
so we'd be on the 2nd and the deadline would be the 7th? That's all right.
Yeah, it's always a Friday, so it's obviously not the 7th, it's going to be the
It
9th.
could be the end
or
of that
something
week,
like that.
though. Could be the,
third?
could be the
Could be the
No,
third.
it wouldn't be the
No,
3rd, but
Okay.
they wouldn't make it that
They
early.
wouldn't do it to us.
None of them would be ready for with their stuff.
Right,
It would be the 10th.
the 10th.
That would-
Okay,
okay.
so that's an estimated date.
So if we met in the 2nd, that would give us plenty of time to deal with anything
Okay.
that had to be dealt with. And get the selectmen if the rest.
What are we looking at for that in terms of we have the sewer plant, I guess, plus the upgrade of the plant and a few other things, right? With their
Bourne's Pond.
Bourne's Pond.
Construction, yeah. And we will have an article for the betterment.
Right.
That's a town meeting decision. So
And
there,
it's not our article, but it will be an article.
it will be selectmen's article, but that, it
Oh, I
will
see,
be
okay.
related to
Yeah,
the
yeah,
sewer
yeah.
issues.
Right,
And there
right.
might be a PRB piece, which we're going to talk about
Yeah.
later on this morning, this evening.
Right.
So what's the next meeting after the meeting on December 4th?
January
January 2nd.
2nd.
I will not be here.
That's right.
Oh.
So I'll be gone for those 2 weeks, Christmas and New Year week, because I have Thursday.
Mhm.
Are you gone the 19th as well?
I can be here the 19th.
Well, we might, well,
Well, let's see how it goes.
Let's
If
see
if
how
we
it
can
goes.
do without the 19th, we will.
We
But
will.
if something has to happen, we won't, I guess.
okay.
But I can call in on 3rd. Figure out.
It's okay. It just means somebody else has to post the agenda and all
Well,
that.
right, and it would have to be posted.
Permeably reactive barrier working group. We have a lot of updating to do on this one, because we haven't really done much updating. And would you like to kind of walk people through how far we've gotten and
Sure.
the twists and turns?
You
No,
look worried.
No, I was just wondering, that you mentioned that the inlet widening article would be coming, and that's for construction, right? And how close is that design and costing and everything at this point?
It's not. We're not close at all. But as part of the total bonding package for all of the Article 17 objectives, you might say, it's always been rolled in as part of that. And the application to the state for the SRF loans is over a 3-year period. And we're expecting the sewer construction to take the first 2 years, and the Bourne's Pond will have been permitted and designed by the 3rd year. So in terms of the
I see.
financial planning and in terms of, remember what town meeting does is authorize bonding, doesn't
Right.
actually spend it,
Yeah,
authorizes it.
right.
And the same is true on the article of the question on the ballot. It authorizes the bonding. The actual timing of the bonding depends on when the project is ready to go out to bid.
Okay, so the thing is, with this project, there's been more cost than we estimated, so in terms of design work, you know.
For
from the-
Bourne's Pond?
Right, for the inlet widening. And I mean, it was 250,000 or something in the Article 17. But,
Well, that's true,
Oh.
but that was not,
but
That was a,
I know,
pick
that was a
number.
pick number. No, I'm just saying though what I'm saying is that as we move forward, then it's, we may need to get another bond. Should it be more than we are
the
allocating?
elements
now?
of this are not as complicated as the other one, of course. It's a bridge,
Hmm.
and it's moving of a groin and
Right.
slightly arranging it. So the numbers have never
Dredging.
been. So the numbers have never varied much from the 5.2 or whatever it was.
yeah.
And so I think it's one
Okay.
we've been comfortable with for a while. If somebody tells us the numbers are going to be different before town meeting, we'll get better numbers.
I think if you've used the number in Article 17 as what the design would be, that's misleading. The CWMP has estimated the cost for the bridge at $5.2 million.
Mhm.
But we know that it has a much longer path of permitting than
Right,
other
right,
projects.
right.
Okay, so consider Article 17 was sort of seed money, if you want to put it that way. And there is, and that's why when we did Article 24 last spring, the real cost for the engineering and design is $700,000. And we're going to take $400,000, round numbers, from Article 17,
Right, right, yeah.
and $300,000 comes from Article 24.
Yeah. Okay.
Has that been bid yet, the engineering and design?
It's being scoped out.
It's being scoped out. Okay.
And bid in the sense that it won't be put out to bid because GHD,
Right.
the original contract with them was to do sewer design engineering and in conjunction with Beta, which is a bridge building company, do the permitting for the bridge.
Could I say just a couple of words? As I have been listening to the discussions that people have been having on climate change and so forth, I've been hearing a couple of people have suggested that one consideration we might make for that bridge is not to make it a permanent structure, to make it a structure which could be washed away
Really?
and then replaced. And it might be far less expensive
I think
than
I think the response we got from the engineers was that the beach will wash away and the road will wash away and the bridge will still
Absolutely.
The
Yes.
bridge will remain.
But the question is, at some point during the life of the bridge, at what point during the life of the bridge does it no longer become feasible to have that road at that location? And that might very well be.
That's a different question.
But it's a question that seems to me it's related to adaptation to climate change. And
But I think that the town is going to, I mean, just imagine, ultimately, if you don't have a bridge at the bottom end of those peninsulas, you basically have only one escape route, which is all the way up to 28.
that's true.
So I think as a community, people are going to think, we want to keep these peninsulas connected because that gives you the other alternative for emergency. It does mean some of these coastal roads are going to have to go up.
Either go up or move back,
Or, well,
be moved in
you
some
know,
cases.
yes, I suppose
And
moving back might be.
I'm just thinking about that as something that might, at least scoping out how much difference it would be.
Yeah, I think I raised that when they were here giving the presentation.
Yeah.
Is there another option to look at that option? And it was, I can't remember the reason why they said it, or however
Well,
it came up. But the thing, I went to the climate change talk that Ray Jack gave last night, and there is a lot of rethinking going on about a lot of things
Yes.
and where we are. So
That's good.
that should be, just as you're saying, when and infrastructure and everything is a big factor. He talked about a lot of issues and showed the impacts of Sandy, which were pretty significant considering it wasn't really here. So that it was, but in terms of affecting Falmouth Heights and the Great Pond Bridge approach and things like this, there were pretty heavy impacts just from that.
That's right.
So it's, he was saying that, look at those, you see those stones? They're like, each one weighs like 30 tons or something, and when it was moved back, several feet. So, so it's a good point to bring into this. So anyway, I don't know, but anyway, the DPW is looking at this because, as he said, when something goes wrong, it's up to them to take care of it, right? So
Right.
they're looking at all this stuff pretty
Maybe we
carefully.
might ask Ray Jack what he thought about that as just a question.
Yeah.
Sure.
He said either we have to retreat, do what the ocean wants to do, or we have to find the funding to keep fixing it
Yeah,
Right.
and raising it. And he said the funding basically isn't there for
yeah,
longer.
yeah.
So, but that decision hasn't been made.
Right. I
When
know
are we gonna do it?
the planning board has been looking at this too, I know. You got a microphone there, I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Oh, good. You're hooked. You're on. Good.
The planning board has a subcommittee looking at updating the local comprehensive plan, and they're dealing with this issue right now. There's only a small group can participate due to the open meeting law, but they meet on Wednesdays at Town Hall and discuss. There's a meeting yesterday, but I am not a member of that committee, but they are grappling with the issues you just raised.
Good.
Are they every Wednesday?
I believe so, yeah. 3:30, I think it is.
Actually, I suggested to...
Kerfoot is.
I suggested to Ray Jack that he should redo his presentation just at the FCTV studio, if not anywhere else, or somewhere where, because I think all the committees in town who couldn't be there would benefit from it. It got into a lot of interesting issues, from the flood insurance aspects and how you can mitigate that and different things. It was quite interesting.
Yeah, it's a question that's on everybody's mind. The answers are intolerable. You know, either you don't build it, in which case you don't have a road that gets
Yeah.
people here and there, or you do build it and you're faced with costs of keeping things in place. Neither one is a good option.
No.
So,
Well,
Yeah.
but is it really necessary? I mean, just as a point, is it really necessary if something were to happen? I mean, because we do have roads coming down, that's an area where there are no homes, where those bridges are basically, so that you can still access down the peninsulas, up and down the peninsulas, and so it's. And if there were a serious storm, it would be difficult. It may be impassable, you know.
People would not like it, but on the other hand, they might like spending $20 million every 10 years or so to maintain the bridge as it is. We don't have any idea what's going to actually happen, do we?
well, if they build this bridge the way the state requires you to build bridges, the bridge will be
It
there.
will be there.
Whatever else happens.
That's right. And I'm just wondering whether that's necessary. Yeah.
Okay, the permeable reactor barrier working group has about 4.5 inches of reports from CDM Smith. And the process has taken some interesting turns, and why don't you tell us about it?
Okay. I'll just start, back up just a minute, because there was an initial feeling, certainly fostered by some people who had experience with permeable reactive barriers as a business, that we ought to be able to ring the peninsulas with these barriers and solve the nitrogen problem and meet the TMDLs. But we've done a very thorough look at this issue, and when you get down to the practicalities of it, there's some serious obstacles to the specific concept of digging a trench, filling it with solid media of some sort, and leaving it in place. Part of the task of CDM Smith was to develop a monitoring program that would be satisfactory to the DEP as a demonstration project, and to clearly show that we were intercepting all of the nitrogen coming from all the residences on these peninsulas. And so this turned out to be one issue that impacted construction, because the concern is that the groundwater will go underneath the barrier. So to avoid that, the barrier has to go all the way through the freshwater lens and then go into the saltwater lens, and they determined it should go in 5 feet. When you add the distance of the 5 feet in the saltwater plus the thickness of the aquifer, which is 20 to 25 feet, plus the dry land above it before you get up to the ground surface, you end up with about 45 feet, which is about the maximum that the very largest piece of equipment that can do trenches can do. That piece of equipment is enormous, and it really will not fit into our residential streets. It also has the problem, it's called one pass, that as it digs and then fills and covers and passes, it has to cut through every single connection for your water connection and your gas connections. And then once it's passed, then those all have to be hooked up again. So it's quite disruptive to the local residential area. Not to mention trees and lampposts and bushes and things like that. So we found that this system of doing a single trench really had depth issues and constructability issues that we believe has taken it off the table. There is an alternate method which is called caissons, and you basically pound a cylinder into the ground, fill that with the media, and then pull it up again. And you do them sort of offset. So here's a circle, here's a circle, here's the next circle, in order to get a more or less continuous barrier. That, again, has the depth issue, down to about 45 feet. The equipment is somewhat smaller, and it can move around connections to some degree, but not totally. So you still have some issues of that sort. So faced with the fact that putting trenches with solid media seemed to have too many issues, we asked CDM Smith to see, is there any other way to make a barrier that would provide a carbon source, which is what we're doing, to intercept the nitrogen coming in the groundwater. And the answer to that is you can do injection wells, and they're done 20 feet on center, and you are putting a fluid down under pressure. You're able to go to considerable depths because you basically have a cluster of wells. So the first well would screen the first 20 feet of the aquifer, the next well would screen the next 20 feet, and theoretically you could do more and more if you had to. But it has very little experience in actually being constructed. I mean, apparently has been done a little, and they have used vegetable oil as the source. So you're putting an oily substance down under pressure into an aquifer. It's also been suggested that you use molasses. And I'm just telling you what so this is a work in progress, and it has significant issues. It's not simple, it's not magical, and it's not worth spending money if it's not going to actually accomplish something. The DEP's monitoring protocol, let's call it, I would call really robust. I mean, monitoring wells upstream, downstream, at the ends, in the middle, all the way over to the water. They have something called a stilling well, so it's pretty intricate. And at this point, we're not sure whether there's a solution at all from this particular. We're still looking at the injection well issue, and then you of course have, there may be some unintended consequences. We don't know whether the molasses, the oil, may actually begin to decompose. It looks like it would have to be renewed every 3 years. So that's a high maintenance issue. Will there be any odor, seepage into areas we didn't expect? So we can't say we found the solution, but we found a lot of questions and a lot of concerns.
Are all of the places about 45 feet that you're looking at?
Well, that is a very good question. The honest answer is we don't know. We have very good data from Seacoast Shores. We have zero data from Minot, Acapesket, and so on, and that's why there's another.
Okay.
That's why I think we need some kind of borings to better characterize the groundwater that we're going to be dealing with.
What about that road in West Falmouth?
Okay, then there's West Falmouth. Yes, there is lots of data, and that's specifically the plume. And there, the objective wasn't capture all the nitrogen. It was, can we hit the highest concentrations and knock them down and reduce the amount of time getting, and that still looks potentially feasible, with one caveat. The data shows that the plume from the plant, a portion comes out at the shoreline, but another portion comes out much farther in the harbor and it's much deeper. So it raises the question, shall we just take care of the shallow piece, and the deeper piece that comes out much farther and gets diluted by the tides, is that something we just don't address? It's in the talking stages at this point.
And there you're talking about, at least eventually, far less nitrogen than you would have in the other plumes?
And a short, yes. Well, it may not be less nitrogen, because there's
There are houses there too.
Yeah, there are houses there too, but the concentration, this is the old plume from the plant, so the
Yes.
concentration, John would know better, is much higher than what you find in the peninsulas, just because it wasn't treated properly.
But that will go through.
But that will
yeah.
slice through, and so then you say this would be a PRB only for 5 years, 10 years. So is it worth,
Yeah.
and we don't have the dollar amounts yet, is it worth constructing this for 5 years or not?
Virginia, do you know, is there any practical application? Has anybody tried those injection wells anywhere?
Yes, and we're doing some follow-up on that specifically, where it was some hydrologist who said he'd heard of this experience with molasses, which to me makes a little more sense because it's soluble. I don't see how the vegetable oil is going to work, frankly.
They cited 3 or 4 experiments of this sort of thing, and
Were they done with
they were like
agricultural
they were
waste?
like 180 days.
Yes, they were very short.
Very short time frame.
Right.
And you know, they don't tell you much.
And working with agricultural waste in very high concentrations, or do we know what they were intercepting?
That's a good question. I'm not remembering. I think they were solvents. weren't
They were looking at perchlorate.
Perchlorate, that's
Okay.
what it was.
That's the analog that was being used for these injection wells. They were cleaning up perchlorate, and it worked quite effectively. But when they looked at nitrogen, there was one study in Nebraska, and there was one study also out west, or in the Midwest. And they were shorter studies. Those were the perchlorate worked, and there's a reason to believe that the chemistry is consistent. But where the nitrogen, we're actually trying to look at nitrogen, and that was in groundwater in Nebraska. It was a very short study, and it only got 40% removal.
Yeah.
And so this came in a recent report, and we asked CDM Smith to go back and give us more details on that. There was a paper that they cited that we wanted to find out a little bit more about it. So it is very much in the experimental stages for nitrogen, but pretty well proven for perchlorate.
I mean, I could imagine what you would have, you would do just like a soil absorption system, that you would develop a biomat very quickly and cause those to clog up.
Right.
Yeah.
I'd be very surprised if
Right.
that didn't occur.
Yep.
With those
That
kind
was
of
another-
materials.
Yes,
That's
right.
one that was-
So that renders it unusable.
Inoperative,
Right.
once it,
Once you get a big biomat,
Yeah.
Or there may be enough pressure where you don't. I mean, it's really a very experimental system.
Right.
yeah, so we were going to, quote, do a demonstration project. It's now evolving into, it would be a pilot project or even a trial, because there hasn't been very much experience.
So perhaps much smaller than the one we had originally thought. or-
That's another possibility that, yeah.
Yeah.
could we maybe do that in a controlled way at George's Test Center?
Well, now there's an idea. This is Barnstable County's concern.
Oh, first, I want to say 2 things. First, about the perchlorate. Keep in mind that that isn't something, a perchlorate problem, where the perchlorate is in the ground, isn't something that can be solved with eco-toilets or sewers of any kind. It's
Yeah, it's in the
it's
ground.
there, and you've got to get rid of it.
Yeah, sure.
And you're willing
And
to
once
spend a
you
lot
get
of
rid,
money
in
to
the
do it.
meantime, you tell the people to stop pouring it into the ground from their dry cleaning plant.
And you're probably willing
so
to spend
that's-
more money.
So economically, it's a totally different thing. And then, in the case of the 45-foot trench, I think you were indicating, it's intuitively obvious that it's more expensive than, say, low-pressure sewers. Just without an engineering degree, just comparing size of hole to size of hole.
Right,
And
exactly.
the idea of the PRB was, yes, it's amortized over several houses, but it's not amortized over 100 houses.
That's right.
Right.
And so you can rule that out immediately on cost, which is nice because then you don't have to pay for any science.
Right.
And then moving down to you presented them nicely in order from the most ridiculous to the
Least
maybe.
Yeah, to the
But even the injection wells, if you can reject it on the basis of cost before finding out if it works, you win.
well,
Because you can do that with a piece of paper. I mean, an engineer in the field of drilling and so on. And then even, unless it's a huge saving, if it's close and just a little bit better, you're still not going to do it because of all these unknowns.
The other factor that about replicability is there's only 2 of our peninsulas that have perimeter roads. So those are the only 2 possible
That's right.
locations for this sort of thing.
Right.
All the rest are off the table.
But as I'm saying, just keep in mind that if you can reject it on the basis of cost to begin with,
Right.
you can save the cost of figuring out if you can reject it on some other basis.
Oh, yeah, right. Yeah. See ya.
I think the big surprise in these analyses was just how deep they had to be.
Yeah.
I think that,
Right.
that, because in the MEP reports, the expectation was that they could be 20-foot trenches, and that would capture, you'd get through the aquifer to the saltwater interface. But the reality is that that's simply not the case, and so we've got deeper, much deeper trenches than we thought, and that makes the price go up. It also just makes the places where we've seen these one pass are in prairies and just
Right.
the middle of nowhere.
Right, military bases where there's no structures to be
No trees,
involved. No trees.
stone walls, none of the
Right.
things that we have around here. And that perimeter road issue is another one for us.
And the one we know was installed and worked was installed right at the shore. It wasn't very deep because it
Because it was right at the shore.
Right at the shore.
And the interface was right at the
Right,
shore.
and that has problems with it. It has to do with saltwater intrusions
Right,
from time to
going over.
time and all
Right.
sorts of other things.
That's right.
Yeah, the only one that still shows enough promise to keep talking right now is West Falmouth. And I think we'll be meeting with the coalition soon to bring them up to speed on where we are on this. And I mean, they were enthused before, but we want to see if they're still enthused at the prospect of injecting vegetable oil or molasses into something that might get into their harbor.
Might
So
end up with more problems than you thought, yeah.
We'll see where that conversation goes, but it's gone a long way from where we started.
Right.
Just one thing though, in terms of cost, we have to remember that it isn't just putting a sewer pipe in the ground and doing everything. There is an operating cost too, which is
And
Which
it's
can
the
be-
molasses.
no, that's construction, right? Every few years, right? If it's molasses, if it's not wood chips, yeah. If we're completely away from wood chips, which I don't know, but it seems to me the big issue is obviously the depth, and therefore the depth of the aquifer. And if there are areas where it's shallow and convenient enough, or
It's got to be shallow, convenient, has to have a perimeter road, and it can't have utilities. And when you add all those things together, it turns out it doesn't exist in Falmouth. It may work in some wide open space. We have to say that we're basing our information on hydrology data from seacoast shores. It's more or less at the midpoint of the peninsula, and we really need to know in the other 4 peninsulas, is that really the story?
Or at least in the one that has the perimeter road.
Right.
That's
Well,
true,
that's
the
true.
others are gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, the sort of the aha moment when they came in with the pictures of these different pieces of machinery was the forward pass, what do they call it? The
One pass.
The one pass model was this giant looking thing with no buildings, trees, fences, or anything anywhere near it. It was, I don't think we have too many areas where this is going to work.
Yes, it doesn't look like quite Cape Cod. So we asked, how does that get across the bridge? And they said, oh, it doesn't. It
too big.
It comes
in
in
a barge.
pieces, and they assemble it on the road. So it just takes over. It's out of scale and won't work.
Yeah. And no one has ever dug a 45-foot hole around
Yes.
here and put anything in it.
Insane.
And we're not going to be the first.
No. Yeah, right.
So, okay, permeable active barriers. Shellfish demonstration project update. And we'll talk about replicability after that. But
Would you like to talk
No,
about
you can go ahead. No, you go
our
ahead, Peter. You
relay?
can-
All
yeah.
right,
shellfish people.
we successfully relayed 1 million shellfish last week in between town meeting from Little Pond with the help of a terrific staff, Chuck Martinson, Dan Fugere, Matt, Phil, and Mike Lucy, and some amazing volunteers. Ron,
There you go.
and Bill Borden, who has been just an amazing help. He was in the water all day in waders, taking the bags, because what we would do is we'd go out to where the rafts of the bags were, and we'd have a boat, and we'd put them in the boat and then bring them to shore, and somebody caught them at shore and then brought them up the hill to where they were dumped into totes. And the totes were then put onto trucks and brought over to where Matt and Dan were a boat at West Falmouth, and then
What size are these?
they ranged in size. They ranged from less than 1/2 inch to 2 inches. And about half, I did some of the analysis today actually, about half of the seed, a little bit more, 60% of the seed were 1.5 inches to 2 inches. And then the other half, 40%, were 3/4 of an inch to 1/2 inch. So we had, and this is about right, because I actually called John Brawley and said, so does that seem about right for seed? You have the studs and you have the middle growers and then you have the runts. And we didn't have too many runts, but we definitely had some amazingly prolific growers. And even getting the smaller seed to that size in a season was considered really astounding growth. So all of it grew well, some grew unbelievably well, over the 2 inches. And so that has all been most of it has been bottom planted, closed areas that will reopen October 2014 for commercial and recreational shellfishing.
And by that time, they will be full grown.
And they will be
Most of them.
probably by, I don't know if you saw at town meeting that Chuck Martinson brought
Oh, yeah.
some samples from our test from 2 years ago.
Last year.
Oh,
This way.
wow,
Yeah, they're big.
They were
Wow.
knife and a fork oysters.
Yeah.
wow.
I mean, you need to cut them in half.
Oh.
So
Yeah.
there's a sense that some of them are going to be enormous, and then plenty of them will be a great size for, for
So
cocktails.
do the little ones grow eventually, or are they just something wrong with that?
No, the little ones are expected to grow, and they have been put in bags that are on the bottom, because they're the main.
So you separate them out. You
Yes.
treat the little ones differently.
Yes, they were in the 4 millimeter bags. They were sort of separate, and they're expected to grow now that they've been opened up a little bit in bigger bags,
Room to grow.
less dense bags. Yeah, they have more room to grow, and the idea is that those will be put into a third area that'll be open for recreational and commercial shellfishing once they get a little bit bigger in the early spring. So there's a sort of a graded plan for making them growing them out safely and making them available to commercial and recreational harvest after they deporate.
Can I ask an ignorant question, which is that when you relay them, are they now lying on the ground in
Yeah.
these water bodies? So the bags are gone. They're out of the bags and just
Most of them,
On
the
the ground.
smallest ones, the ones that were 1/2 inch and under, are still in either bags or trays. So it's a fair question.
and they're being kept in Little Pond. But the
No,
one
they're being-
in these other places.
In these other places in bags,
Okay.
so that they can clean out in those bags
Okay.
and then be conveniently put
Right.
into a third
Okay.
area.
Got it.
Just, a couple things. One thing, it's actually interesting as we go ahead with, like different kind of horizons appear, and different billboards come up of here's another option. But I think one thing is that on the smaller ones, some of them were not spread out enough during the season. So some of them are small because they were too many in a bag. And so it was just one of those things that needed to be tracked a little bit. But what's interesting though is that the ones that are now in West Falmouth Harbor, and in Green Pond will be cleaning up those estuaries. It isn't like they're not, they stop their bit, okay? They continue onward. So there's a, when I talk about new horizons and billboards, it's kind of like thinking about whether that is, which is what a lot of the producers do on the Cape actually, is to spread them out on the bottom. And whether that's a different approach that might be something that would be looked at than just growing them in bags. And an important element about keeping the small ones in bags now is that spider crabs and others are quite good at gobbling them up. So when they're tiny, but when they're the bigger ones, they're more robust and have thicker shells, so they can withstand that much better. So so we'll have to see, but this is another dimension to it. And I think that, and this we're talking about replicability, but in trying to think about whether they are grown in bags till harvest size, or spread out, or both. And in a way, in looking at it, if you use the bag system more or less as a seed producer, right, and that becomes your major seed producer, then you put them out to grow. If we've got enough good bottom, that's another issue with a lot of these estuaries. Then we can look at that as an option, how to work with that, and with the different agencies, and thinking about the impacts. Because now I think that a lot of as they get next summer, they will be, as we saw with the ones from last summer, they were this size and then they were that size. So the absolute growth rate increases as they get bigger, and the relative growth rate goes down. But the absolute growth rate, so the real punch in terms of taking up nutrients comes in the larger size. But we don't want them to get too big, because then they're sort of beyond market size. But these estuaries are so full of nutrients, and that doesn't seem to be a limiting factor with growth. I mean, there can be genetic elements, there can be things that Sia mentioned, but I think if it's managed with the proper densities, that they'll do quite well.
There's outside of Caleb's Pond in Morequite Bay, there's an outflow plain outside of Caleb's Pond that's quite large. It's free of muck and so forth. Tide goes over it every day. Some of it is out of the water sometimes. Is that the kind of place where you could put them? Steamers used to grow there, and they no longer grow there. You haven't found steamers there for a number of years.
No, they should grow. They are intertidal. I mean, they can't live intertidally. They're fine. They just clam up, so to speak, when the water's gone. But but the other interesting element was that we found almost no mortality.
Yeah.
It was amazing. Like last year, we said, all right, we put out 2,500, and we found like 10 dead shells from 10 or whatever it was. 10 or it was a very small amount. It's the same. They are very incredibly robust, and the disease control, apparently, we'll see what happens in this next summer, but disease control seems to be well managed by ARC, Outgrowth Research Corporation, that provides the seed. So it seems that it's doing from that end. At least with this batch, it was very good.
Virginia.
Yeah. So there's So there's no sign at all of the thing we heard about a couple of years ago, that the oysters were in some places were beginning to die when they were 2.5 inches or so because of something or other that was wrong with the water.
MSX, no JOD.
Nothing of that.
We didn't see it with the ones that were put out from last summer. I don't know how many, if they counted, I don't know if we've counted enough of them, but the area was paved with oysters where they put them out, so it wasn't serious, a big deal.
The bags that were emptied and then the oysters were relayed, are those bags reusable?
Yes, they are stored.
Okay.
That was a whole part of the operation.
Yes,
Perfect.
so that we would not have that expense again
That's right.
next year.
They
Okay.
should last 10 years. Those bags have about a 10-year life.
Oh, good.
Do they have to be sterilized or anything like that, or?
No, I asked about that. I thought we ought to scrape them and clean them with bleach, but apparently from the growers who do this all the time, the winter, everything dries that's on them, and they just scrape them off at the beginning of the year. Yeah, I was ready to. Interestingly, I had a conversation with Diane Murphy, who's with a cooperative extension, and she's been studying oysters extensively throughout southeastern Massachusetts. And what she has done is sampled oysters from all over, wild oysters, cultivated oysters, triplets. I have a list of all the different kinds of oyster samples she's taken to get a dry weight nitrogen number. So she's been trying to normalize. And Ron, I think you sent around her presentation from
Yeah.
the Cape Cod
Yes.
Collaborative. Yeah, subsequent to that, she's sort of gotten some additional documentation. But the idea is to have a dry weight. It's a quarter of a gram per harvestable oyster, which is 3 inches. And so she's putting together, trying to quantify this, how much nitrogen is in the meat and the shell of the oyster. And we are testing our oysters as well. So we're also going to get a dry weight nitrogen for the meat and for the shell, and hopefully Ron's going to get a dry weight number that includes
Well,
the goop that's also on them. But at least BU, which is where Diane sends her samples, and where John Brawley sends his samples for Salt Pond, is where we're sending our samples to get that number, so that we'll be able to see normalized to weight. So we're getting some really good data. I should say that following on Ron's comment that not all of the bags were split. I did a look at our budget today for the project, and we are about $1,200 over our budget. Labor was more than we thought. Equipment was a little less than we thought. We'd still like to have Dan, who was the project manager, available for finishing up with the second batch, which will probably be another 30 hours of work. Chuck Martinson is willing to just bring his staff in to finish that up, to keep us at about, at the end of the day, let's just say $1,700 over budget. So I just wanted to let everybody know, when you by the numbers, we're about there.
Right. If we need a vote, we can schedule it for the next meeting.
Right.
But, we'll see.
Just one thing on that, though, is that this labor aspect is that we are now seeding the town's estuaries
Yes.
as part of the shellfish program for the town. So it's sort of like,
And Chuck is very
yeah, no,
supportive.
exactly. He's been
Yeah.
great.
Incredible.
So it's not, we kind of cross over into another realm of shellfish activity as opposed to directly the water quality side of it.
And I think Chuck and we may find ourselves at the CPC pointing out the recreational value of all this.
Right.
Because they have lately found a lot of money for recreational things.
Well, the thing is,
Other towns have done it.
right, that's right, in the vineyard, they've used
Yeah.
CPC.
Even
money
in
for that.
Mashpee, I think they did.
Yeah, and
CPC.
imagine we just got a vote from
Okay.
your CPC.
So that's another possible funding source to chase around.
Which we will need, because next year, the other thing is I'm trying to quantify the value of the volunteers. I have it, I know what the value was for the relay, because I counted every hour because I was there. And I have some numbers for the bag assembly, which we won't have to do again, but
Right.
it's an enormous, it's thousands and thousands of dollars. So we want to maybe try and adjust next year's budget to understand just what the labor is really going to be.
The committee and our nationwide TVI should know that Sia is not just speaking from observation here. She was in the water more than any of these volunteers, and probably more,
Well,
than
not more.
more than anyone else who was being paid to do this. So her 25 hours a week got lengthened, I think,
It's that way.
in the water, I might add. And
Yeah, what would that be?
This one thing is that this collaboration with the Cape Cod Cooperative Extension kind of fits in nicely with the second agenda item, because they're not doing the water quality analysis work, they're just looking at the animals. So it could be that we would then look, because we're doing the more comprehensive approach. I think their focus really is on what's in the animal. And so this would be something to
sure.
to work as a part, continue the partnership or strengthen it that way. Yeah.
Steve?
Can you tell me more about this goop? You implied that it's something that you're expecting to get nitrogen credit for. So I'm curious what happens to it.
Well, often
I'm picturing a guy washing it right back into the estuary where it came from.
no, they take it away. No, when you go into a fish market and you see the oysters in there, look at them. They've got dried stuff on them. They've got serpulid worms growing on them. They've got other things, and oftentimes this stuff is scrubbed off.
It goes down the kitchen
and
sink.
it goes somewhere. Yeah,
Or
it goes.
ship them off Cape.
No, that isn't the point. The point is that when they do the nitrogen analysis, that part that's being removed is not counted. I mean, if the oysters are eaten here, of course, there's a recycling, right? But the thing is that that if they are shipped off Cape, which is what happens. I mean, it really gets going in Falmouth, like with the Wiana Oyster Company doesn't sell any oysters on Cape Cod directly. They may come back to Cape Cod, but they all go to Boston to the seafood market, and then they go from there. So it's hard to know where this is going. But the main thing is that you want to look at what we're taking out, but it may not amount to much.
It goes with the oysters to market.
It goes out of the estuary, right?
And what about the pseudofeces and so forth? Is that something that's being taken into account too, or the fact?
Yeah. The water quality will tell us a lot,
Yeah.
and it's there. I mean, that is there, but there is studies that have been done, and we haven't moved that way yet. There might be a parallel effort, but in the Chesapeake they did studies specifically looking at that the enhancement of denitrification through the aerobic anaerobic interface that's created by the raining down of the feces and this interface. So you may be getting denitrification enhanced, and estimates have been from 50% of the weight of the oyster or the nitrogen in the oyster to 5 times, but nothing's been really well documented except
There've
that.
also been some that it's really small, it's sort of almost inconsequential too.
Denitrification?
Yeah, I saw some recent Chesapeake, but you're right, we have to look at
Yeah,
it.
you
Yeah.
need real numbers.
A couple budget questions. At one time, I remember there was some talk about getting an extra upweller. Has that issue gone away? Is there?
Oh, we've got it.
You got it. Okay. So when you say we're just 1,700 over budget, that includes this extra, upweller. Then the second part is you spoke about we need about 50,000 for shellfish monitoring for year number 2.
That's right.
Okay, how much seed do we need to buy for year number 2, or do we have enough carryover from?
No, we need about, again, it was $10,000 last year, I think.
We spent $25,000 on seed in 2 batches.
2 batches.
12.5 for early, 12.5 for
So-
late.
Okay,
There'll just be one next year.
My feeling about it is the late seed that we have now is a little bit of a jump ball. We need to see what the test results, how they come back, and
Sure.
what we're going to be able to do with it, and whether by pitting it over the winter it clears itself. And one of the observations that the shellfish, the 2 growers, Matt and Dan, made was that what we got by getting that late batch were runts. We're slow growers.
I see.
And the early seed that we grew would outgrow that late seed. So that if we were to get a fresh new batch, so spend another 12.5 and get a fresh new batch,
Okay.
and start it in April, because now the upwellers are running,
Right.
we could grow it out to over a ½ inch, which is what our goal was,
Right. Okay.
pretty quickly. So I think we have a plan A and we have a plan B, and I'm letting the committee know that the financial implication of plan B is just another $12,500. And that early seed would grow out enough to accomplish the goal of what this late seed was supposed to do,
Okay.
if
Yeah.
we can't relay it,
Yeah.
which is a distinct possibility at this point.
Okay.
Okay. Good. Thank you.
Okay. The second half of number 5 here is replicability. This is not a today project or a this year project, but it's in the next 12 to 24 months. I think we want to look at every single estuary and see how much of it could be available for shellfish propagation in the way that we do it, or that we're proposing to do it. You're going to find a lot of conflicts. We got everybody and their uncle who has an interest in the water, in these water bodies. And there's a lot of committees in town that have a hand in this too. We got the waterways, we got the beach committee, we got the what's the coastal management?
Public access.
There's 3 or 4 or 5 committees, all of whom have
Some piece.
are stakeholders, shall we
Yeah.
say, in these water bodies. And I think sort of our long-term project is to interact with each one of them, get a sense of where their red lines are and where they aren't, and what's left, and how much is left that could accommodate what we're talking about.
Well, yeah, and I think we had to cover a lot of them just to do this, right? And I've already interacted with the Coastal Pond Committee that are interested in looking at this. They're interested in, there's studies on Green Pond, and so they're looking at layouts and things like this. So it's in their minds now.
Yeah, they get a grant for that. They had a grant of $25,000 to look at Green Pond.
Yeah, they did it. They did whatever the planning process they were looking at.
Yeah.
And so, so that's one. But I think that it's more again starting with the abutters, critically, before anything happens.
You didn't have to coordinate with the boaters
Oh, yeah.
for Little Pond?
Well, not Little Pond.
That's
The
what I
Little
mean.
Pond.
No boats.
Every other water board.
But Little Pond has kayaks, so there is something
They don't
about.
have moorings.
No,
Right.
right,
Moorings,
there
right,
isn't
right.
a mooring conflict, and that's a major plus for Little Pond.
Right, but I did. Well, we spoke with. We intend to include or engage more with the harbor masters because some of these mooring fields might be consolidatable, and then we can put them together a bit,
Sure.
and then looking more strategically at the layouts and how things can be done. And it might be that these, if it's floating bags again, if we can continue in that, it could just be right along the edge of the pond going around, and not having enough opening spaces so people can pass and everything. And then the viewscape is also not so much of an issue because you're looking over them or you're looking across at something, and then it would be outside the moor. It would be too shallow for boats, but there would still you'd still have the access. But so there are a lot of ways. There are ways to do it.
There's a lot of estuaries, and each one has their own
exactly.
set of issues.
Right. And each community will be different. They have different attitudes,
Sure.
different things, and so we have to see what they.
So we're just planting a seed at this point for the
Right.
shellfish
But-
group is not dismissed.
The one thing to keep in mind, okay, on the money side a little bit, is that what do we estimate now the project might cost over 3 years, $250,000 to $300,000 or something like this.
300,000, because if it's 50,000 a year for
For monitoring.
that's 50,000 next year, year 2, and then
Right, right.
50,000 the following year, year 3.
Right. Yeah. However,
And then seed.
yeah. So.
And labor.
And later,
I'm
yeah.
sorry.
We
Well,
only,
I mean, there is there was a budget.
right, we
there
only
was-
voted money for the first 2 years because we didn't have enough for the third year.
Right. So we had 200,000 for the first 2 years, and I think we've gone over that a little bit. But the third year, but the point is that let's say it is 300,000 or whatever, something like that. What we just transferred is the equivalent of $1 million worth of oysters. Once they grow up. To the recreational, not to the commercial. Commercial would be $500,000 if it were all commercial. But for someone who's collecting it recreationally, as opposed to going to a fish market, of course they have a labor, but of course there's entertainment factor there too. But still,
Yeah.
it is something to. It's kind of daunting when you think about the return, economic return at least, and then if it becomes in the future more of a private sector involvement, then a lot of these labor issues and everything ends up, almost all the cost is then transferred to that with some from coordination from the department. So it's something that begins now to look from a financial standpoint, pretty good
Sure.
as far as the benefit. So it's almost staggering. We just have to now see just how much good they're doing, which is obviously, I carried a lot of those totes, and we took a lot of material out of Little Pond. Now, how much of it was nitrogen, we'll find out, but I'll tell you, every day it was like my back just got to that last tote, because they were, 75 pounds apiece, and but there were 2 of us carrying them.
Right.
We weren't that crazy, right? But still, it's a lot of,
It's a lot of work.
Dan could just lift one. He just picked up a tote. I'm like, I just go pick it up. It wasn't moving. Yeah. That was fun.
Eric?
Yeah, Steve.
It seems to me that the transition to a commercial mode should be a fairly high priority, because I'm convinced I mean, you haven't bred a new variety of oysters, so you know that they're taking nitrogen out.
Yeah.
You don't have magic oysters that don't have nitrogen in them. Some new kind of biochemistry. I mean, that,
No, it's protein. There's a lot of protein there. Yeah. Right.
you know that they take out the nitrogen, and you know the neighbor. I mean, you've already achieved most of the major goals of your demonstration project.
Well, we have. I mean, in terms of
But one of the goals is to find out the relative cost of all these different techniques. And if you can go negative cost,
Yeah,
you win.
yeah,
yeah,
No one can touch that.
yeah.
right. That's it. Well, that's. I mean, well,
Well, yes.
in a way, there'll be a combination of factors. I think that we'll be seeing out there. It's not just going to be
Right.
one thing, but it is impressive. And once we get a better idea from the data of what this can do, and
I'm not saying to
Yeah.
stop. I'm just
yeah,
saying
right.
you
But-
should start thinking about how you do it commercially, because there's all these permitting things.
No,
and so
no.
on.
Well, no. The commercial thing is that there are licenses all over the Cape for growing oysters. This is and vineyard. This isn't like anything new that we have to do. We don't have to
You're
do
giving
that.
away $1 million worth of stuff.
We are in this. No, I'm talking about if it goes into more of a private production operation, which is you can go. It exists in Falmouth already.
Yeah.
That you can then do it that way as well.
Well, Steve's point is well taken.
Yeah.
There's fewer red flags in this than on many other things,
Yeah.
and more good signs.
Right.
So yes. Any more?
I have a question. Do we want to get a sort of a working group together? Do we want to wait till after the first?
Well, you have your working group, right? Who Ron and who was it?
Ron and
Who was?
Chuck and Greg.
No, but we had someone else from this committee, wasn't it?
It was
Matt.
Steve Rafferty, wasn't
That's
it?
It was
Or
Steve.
Matt.
That's it. It was Steve.
Oh,
Right?
Steve Rafferty, right, right,
Yeah,
right.
it was Steve.
All right. Well, to be fair, we ought to have.
Matt was on it too, I thought.
Were you? All right.
Matt was on it too, also.
Okay, but yeah, he was probably not as active as the other two. But we probably need someone else to
Yeah,
kind
well,
of join in this piece. Anybody?
Steve has a head for numbers. Are you?
I hate oysters, but I'll be happy to
He
help.
doesn't,
You don't have to worry about me eating it.
and 75-pound bags aren't your thing either.
No, I'll be
Ron and I
happy to
say
help.
we're fine.
You want
Yeah.
it's a different issue. It isn't the oysters anymore. It's the replicability of the sites and things like that, and the interacting with all these other interests in each water body that is kind of like got to get itself on the menu now.
yeah, I think too, besides replicability, we still need to really get the water quality.
Oh, absolutely.
No,
No, that-
Oh, no, yeah.
That's key. This
Right.
is just
That's
looking
key.
at new
Yeah,
tastes.
yeah.
We
Right,
haven't
right,
met all our goals yet.
Yeah.
No, absolutely.
Yeah.
All
And
right.
we're going to need next year's data.
Yes.
Yeah.
We need twice as many
Ab-
shellfish.
Yeah, you've learned
Yeah.
a lot, and that's
Yeah.
Yeah.
way to go. Okay, correspondence. We have two things on the list here. The Buzzards Bay Coalition, which the letter was sent around to all the folks here, and basically the coalition has been very concerned with the Site 7 and the possibilities of it impacting West Falmouth Harbor or Ashpee Creek or a number of water bodies out there. And they have been very zealous in making the points all along the way that those water bodies need to be protected from impairment. And their written response at this point suggests that they have been largely satisfied with the results of the town's expenditures on research, and they want to see a lot of monitoring, and they have questions, but by and large they have moved to the position that, and I don't want to speak for them, but they moved to the position that we've laid out a proposal that would meet their standards for letting it go ahead. Is it fair to say?
I think
Anybody else
they
want
say explicitly that, given the data, they agree that no nitrogen will reach West Falmouth Harbor. So they
Right.
concur with the findings of Tech Memo 12 and the reverse particle tracking work that we did at their request and using their analysis. And they agree that they agree that they don't think phosphorus is going to reach Quacker Pond. So they concur with the expert findings in those two regards. I think that's
Helpful.
They want us to do monitoring to make sure that the best scientific studies we've done are borne out in reality.
Fair enough. Any other comments or
Well,
discussions?
I think on that, and they do have a level of uncertainty, though. They say that in the range of things, the way it's reported, but that the monitoring is critical. The one thing that, outside of their views, I would still be interested in seeing or hearing from the consultant what it would cost to put in some kind of a medium, green sand or whatever it might be, in the infiltration beds relative to the overall cost as a safeguard polishing thing. If it's something that therefore that would really be an amazing thing. And then the phosphorus in that case would be mineable. I mean, in time it could be captured by taking that material out and then replacing it. So it's just a notion of getting an idea of what that might be as a feasibility and the relative cost in perspective of the overall project. It would be an interesting, I think that would be just another way to
You're talking about a
mitigate.
phosphorus absorption medium?
Yes, phosphorus absorption medium, right, that would be just be there, because that apparently, in talking with George Heufelder, that is feasible, but I don't know, really, just talking to him.
It's like
Yeah.
building a typical leaching bed, right? If your soil doesn't perk, you dig it out and put sand in, and then you build your...
Yeah.
Well, he's suggesting that there's a media that instead of having it in sand filter beds, you'd have some, do you have a specific?
He mentioned a few things, and I don't recall exactly. That's what I said. I'd like to see if it could be explored by the consultant, just as a bit, just to find out. Well, it's going to be a huge expense or relatively minor expense, but it adds a level of safety in terms of that.
So media filter in the beds that would absorb the phosphorus.
Right.
But what I'm saying is I'm not sure it has to be anything exotic. I mean, the Ecologics report has convinced most of us that the soil is already that way. And the only objection is that, well, maybe some soil isn't that way. But clearly you could go out and, if you were going to do this, and get the right kind of soil and put it in the bed.
Yeah, well,
And
yeah.
you would have it in your hand. You'd know it was the right stuff. And it would just be sand.
So you doctor the bed with something which would, like aluminum and iron-containing sand or something like that.
Yeah.
And that is the kind of thing that could be done if your monitoring wells downstream showed that the phosphorus wasn't doing what you thought it was doing.
Yeah.
There's no-
But if you're
I
building a leaching field anyway, and if it had to be backfilled with sand anyway,
Right.
you could get the right kind of sand for practically
maybe it would help.
zero marginal cost.
It is backfilled with sand, so we're making a presumption here that, quote, the right kind of sand. It may turn out it's some other kind of media. I just want to remind you that at the last meeting, I briefed you on my visit to the test center and the fact that George was doing some testing of additional layers, reactive layers,
Yeah.
which is really what you're talking about. So just call it alternative media. And you use the word polishing, and I think that's probably the correct concept. You have the effluent coming out at 2.4, 2.5 milligrams per liter. Is there one additional step that polishes it before it actually gets discharged to the sand filter beds, which are going to have sand in them? So, it's so noted, I guess, is what we would say at this point, because it is doable to look at that.
And it is a work in progress, and George is doing it.
Well, and we're very lucky that George is looking at non-proprietary alternatives.
The other thing that you all received in the email was a letter from a gentleman in Mashpee
Michael Talbot.
about the
Michael
nitrogen
Talbot, yeah.
control bylaw that Mashpee was considering, and I would like to read a paragraph of it for a nationwide TV audience. Last night at our EOC meeting, the members, including scientists, an engineer, the chair of our Board of Selectmen, which voted unanimously to support the Cape Wide Fertilizer DCPC, and a citizen activist, all agreed that we prefer that Mashpee adopt regulations similar to those which Falmouth adopted. Frankly, the Cape Cod Commission regulations seem weak and contain language which could cause problems for adoption of the regs. Also, it makes more sense to have neighboring towns adopting similar regulations. So you may all take a bow. The regulation that the town meeting adopted found favor in Mashpee, and so far the Cape Cod Commission's version has not been adopted by any town.
They don't have much more time.
Well, they gave themselves another year. Senator Wolf passed
I didn't know
a
that.
small piece of legislation that gave them an extra year.
I see.
Oh,
But they've already come with their version, which is distinguished by being 8 times as long as ours. And it exempts everyone who already is in the business from having to do anything they aren't doing already. And
it allows them to put
has
3.5
some other
pounds of-
weaknesses that ours didn't have.
Have
Three-
you sent gorillas out to the other towns? I mean, as in GUERILLON, to apprise them of the Falmouth law, for them to consider.
But there's something, isn't there a constraint? They just can't, they have to go with
Well,
the
that's
county
right.
thing now or something?
Yeah, we were lucky enough
Right.
to have passed it and then having the legislature retroactively allow it to be implemented, whereas the other towns would have to go through more hoops
Right.
at this point.
What's Mashpee going to do?
Well, this is what they'd like to do. We'll see what they can do. Anything can be done if the legislature wants to do it. But they did pass this statewide bill a while ago that would, at the moment, preclude Mashpee from doing what it would like to do, which is adopt ours.
But let's say the county were to adopt ours as a model, as a countywide thing, then the towns can pick it up, right? At this point?
That's right.
They could, right?
Okay,
They could.
okay.
Yeah.
But if all the towns saw ours, saw that it was better, and went to the county and saying, look, there are 12 of us, and there's only one of you.
They're welcome to it. But anyway, take a bow, because I think it gives Falmouth another reason to feel like we know what we're doing here.
well,
Good.
when I read this, I had the feeling it sounded very much like what Nantucket passed.
Theirs had allowed 3 times as much nitrogen per
This allowed 3.5 pounds per year.
3.5.
Yeah, which is
Oh,
about-
that's ridiculous.
That's ridiculous, yes.
Yeah.
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 I mean, they did make language about, well, you should not put any more than the soil needs and so forth. But they said 3.5 pounds.
Well,
Was, yeah.
3.5 pounds is like no rule at all.
That's right, yeah.
All right.
And Webner and
Yes.
Faces are going to do some education around our bylaw. They-
Oh, good,
Joan, yeah, so they're,
good.
Oh, and the Conservation Commission is now including the bylaw language in all of its orders of condition on any properties that have, well, all their orders of condition,
since they apply.
because they all apply, the 100-foot rule. So we've done something good.
Good.
We've had the discussion on the schedule. December 5th meeting will be on December 4th, scheduled for 7:30, but we'll get a real time. 19th is tentatively off the table unless we need something we have to vote on that we can't deal with on December 4th. Any other reports from members and staff?
I'll just mention, I think I mentioned it last time, that one of the consequences of, or one of the results of trying to get other towns interested in the toilet project has finally come to some fruition in Orleans. There are 2 groups in Orleans who would be interested in having me and perhaps someone else come down and talk to them. I just received notice from Ed Daly. I don't know whether you know Ed Daly.
I don't know.
He's working with Jeff Eagles in that group. But Ed Daly and I talked about it. He said, there's no chance of doing anything down here. And I said, well, I just want to talk with people down there. And he said, okay, the person you ought to talk with is someone from the Board of Selectmen. And so he wrote back to me and said, the chair of the Board of Selectmen, I can't remember, Holton or Hubs, whatever his name is, would like me to come down and brief them on not just the eco-toilet project, but other things that we're doing in Falmouth.
Good.
But they are looking at things now. They're looking at alternatives, and he would appreciate a briefing, so I'm going to do that.
Good.
And the other one is I still have to find a date to go down and talk with the company that I can't. My memory is not very good for things like this, but it's the head of a company down there, Coastal Engineering, I think it's
Coastal
called.
Engineering.
Coastal Engineering wants to talk with us about what we're doing, and because one of their members has been hounding him for years that he ought to be listening to things about eco-toilets and things like that.
Good.
So I'm planning to go down there, or to try to get them to come up here into to the Eco-Toilet Center and talk with people there, and see people there.
Terrific. As a follow-up to that, you may not have known, but the day before yesterday was
Yes.
World Toilet Day.
I did.
Well, I'm sure you did,
Yeah.
but the rest of the committee and the television
Yeah.
audience may not.
Yeah, and Carol wrote the.
I see Carol's story here. She suggests that the country's first urine diverting flush toilet was in Truro, and the only other permitted systems are in California and Washington. I think she missed one.
Yeah.
She missed a lot of stuff.
She missed a lot
Yeah,
of
she
stuff,
missed-
is what
missed a
I'm
lot of
trying to hear.
Yeah.
But in any event, she's got part of the story, and maybe we should fill her in on the rest of the story.
Well, we tried.
Yeah.
There you go. Any other reports from members and staff?
Oh yes, I just wanted to mention that I got a letter, and I think also Sia got a letter, and maybe you also got a letter from Lauren. Lauren.
Oh,
Oh,
Yeah, who is writing a dissertation on urine diverting toilets under Horsley and Tufts University. She's getting back to it. She wants information on that, and I'm just trying to send her what I can. I think you're going to try to send her what you can. Just report on what we're doing. So there's another place where we should be looking for information about all sorts of things going on. There's more going on in the United States than I thought there was. She says there's some place in California is now doing something, a small demonstration project. So I mean, things are developing in any case.
Good. All right, further reports from members and staff? If not, we have review, discussion, and vote of the minutes of the prior meeting. I know Steve had one proposed amendment, and
You want me to say
yeah,
what that is?
do you want to
Yeah.
offer it
It
up?
was just a clarification. The way it reads now,
Page which?
Yeah, tell us where we are.
it's under the report on Oyster Pond CWMP
Yeah.
progress.
Page 2 in the middle.
Page 2, middle of the page.
It says Steve Layton reported that Wright Pierce is proceeding carefully, working on the needs assessment and comments, and is planning to meet with the neighborhood residents next summer. What I think I said was, Steve Layton reported that Wright Pierce is proceeding carefully, incorporating the public comments in the needs assessment, and is planning to present the suggested alternative treatment methods to the neighborhood/residents next summer.
Okay, that sounds like what you said. Is there a
Move the minutes with that addition.
I have a couple of additions.
Oh.
Okay, well, let's move this one then. Can we get a second on this one?
Second?
Okay, discussion, all in favor?
All right.
Aye.
Opposed? Got it. What's yours?
All right, brief. On page 2, under the shellfish demonstration, the last sentence is open to recreational and commercial shellfishing. So I think-
Not just recreation?
Not just recreational, it's also commercial shellfishing.
Okay,
I want to make sure everybody's happy.
okay.
And then on page 3, where it says, see a carpalist explain the purpose, sort of the first big paragraph. Last sentence says, the main point was that the test that was asked for at the West Falmouth hearing. I don't think a test was asked for at the West Falmouth hearing. So, and I would say the test that was discussed at the West Falmouth hearing.
Okay.
Because nobody asked for a test at the West Falmouth hearing, so
No, they
the
didn't.
test was discussed. And then the rest of that sentence should say, has been done for Mass Military Reservation soils. So
Okay.
I just don't want there to be confusion that the test has been done for Site 7. It was done for MMR soils, which are, you know, MMR soils, period.
All right.
Move it.
Second.
Discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Got it. All right. I'm glad to see everybody's reading the minutes so carefully. Is there any further business to come before the meeting? Anything to bring by the planning people, by the finance committee people, by the Ecotoic people? You're all here. We have a nationwide TV audience for you. Wow. Well.
got my urine tank.
Where'd you get
John picked it up.
You got an infiltrator.
Steve is an early adapter or adopter.
An early adopter, you get a 500-gallon storage tank that's going to be outside.
Okay.
And
Right.
Got ladies checking my sewage for pills already.
Move to adjourn.
Move to adjourn. Second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? We got it. Thank you very much.